Hey, and welcome to another edition of Wisdom Wednesday. It's great to be with you here on July 12th, looking into Proverbs chapter 12. We're going to be looking into three specific verses today as we learn and attempt to apply wisdom to our lives so that we can live wisely according to the Word of God, the principles that are found in it, and the writings of Solomon. In Proverbs 12, Solomon covers an array of topics. Like I said, we're going to be looking at three specific verses today. The first one is found in verse 9. It says, "It's better to be a nobody and yet have a servant than to pretend to be somebody and have no food." And we're not going to get into the whole whether or not we should have servant things, because we should probably know in 2023 we should not have servants. But here's what this is saying for us in our context here today. It is better to live below our means and to not attempt to be flashy with the things we have for the sake of causing others to think we're more than we are. Have an appropriate view of who you are and don't try to change other people's vision of who you are based on things that you do. It's like that fancy saying, you drive a car you can't afford to a job you don't like to impress people you don't know. And that's a silly way to live our lives. If we are constantly striving and attempting to do things so that others see us and think that we are more than we are, then we are playing a fool's game. And Solomon says it is better for people to look at you and be totally non-assuming as to who you are, and to actually have great wealth and opportunity for being generous and savvy in the things that we do, than it is to pretend to be those things and not actually have them. It's living a falsity. And Solomon is saying here in Proverbs 12:9 that it is better to live an unassuming life and to not try to have this status showing of who you are. You'll see that often, that we'll look at our society and there's often mega rich people who don't dress like mega rich people. Or we have really people that we would hold in great importance within our communities, and a number of them would not see themselves as people of great importance. They would see themselves as just humbly serving and diligently doing what they are capable of doing in their communities. It's not a me attitude. It's a how can we serve and help one another. So Solomon encourages us in this, friends, that we should not be people who are so focused on expressing an overinflated value of ourselves, but that we should be accurate and understanding in who God's created us to be, what we have, what we can offer, and to serve diligently in those things. It is better to be nobody and have some things than it is to try to prove that you are somebody and actually be in poverty. And so that might hit different for some of us, but I think when we try to live wisely, it is important to go, I don't need the accolades or the validation of others in my wise living, in my wise choices, in the stewardship of my resources, the use of my time. I want to be accountable before the Lord and before my family. And outside of that, I don't need to know the status that people hold me in their lives. And maybe that's releasing for you. Maybe that's a challenging concept that would even exist, especially in our social media era, where we try to put on this air of importance, this air of being super special, this air of perfection, and it's a trap. It's always a trap. This is not a competition. Competition steals joy. And when we are robbed of our joy, we are robbed of our opportunity and our ability to live well and make wise decisions. You know it. When you're not in a joyous mood, or when you're back against the wall, you make bad decisions that hurt you and your family and your future. And we're trying to live wise lives, making good decisions, assessing what's happening, understanding ourselves and those around us, and knowing that I don't need to tweak the opinions of those around me towards me. I'm just going to live the way that I live. I'm going to serve God the way I serve God, and I'm going to even be considered a nobody rather than being considered somebody who actually has nothing. In verse 25 and 26 are going to be the next two verses we look at here in Proverbs chapter 12, and they speak of a slightly different tone and format. Verse 25 says, "Anxiety weighs down the heart, but a kind word cheers it up. The righteous choose their friends carefully, but the way of the wicked leads them astray." Friends, anxiety is something that is bound to encroach on you throughout your life. We can't live an anxious free life. We can't live a stress free life. These are things that we will deal with. But what we see here is that anxiety weighs down our heart. Not only does it bog our brain, it weighs down our heart and our ability to love, our ability to care, our ability to perceive in reality. Anxiety has the ability to completely turn and change our perspective on things. But it says that a kind word can cheer up our hearts. And I don't know about you, I've dealt with anxiety before, and there's been moments in my anxiety where even kind words fell on deaf ears because I was so focused on the thing that I was anxious about that I was unwilling to see the things that were going on around me that actually were really good. But I was really focused on these negative elements happening in my life around me, be it people. Maybe I had allowed others to set a standard as to who I was according to verse 9, that I was a problem. But these anxieties began to weigh me down. And it's as I began to give these anxieties to the Lord and I began to ask for his perspective, that my ability to see shifted and changed. And so I want to encourage you that you will come up with anxiety in your life. Welcome to being human. It's part of the human condition. But the reality is that when we're faced with that anxiety, we should look to some of our friends, our mentors, our spiritual leaders, our pastors, small group leaders, whoever that might be, the Word of God, God himself especially, to begin to relieve that anxiety by cheering our hearts. And that's a really important thing to understand, friends, is that when anxiety happens, it happens here, but it affects this. And when we allow our friends and our God to cheer up our heart, it changes the way we think and the way we see things as well. It's all connected. And so in that, let me get into verse 26, which I think ties and holds deeply and closely with verse 25. It says, "The righteous choose their friends carefully." I had an individual in my life, he told me, "You are the sum or the average of your five closest friends." Sorry, you're the average of your five closest friends. So if you look at your five closest friends, you're probably in the average of them. Are some of your close friends, are they leading you astray or are they leading you into good things? Verse 26 goes on to say, "But the way of the wicked leads them astray." When we don't choose our friends or their closest confidants or our closest mentors carefully, we are led into being astray on the things that we should be doing. Living wisely means understanding those who are around us, those who are in our corner. And this isn't to say we should get rid of all of our friends. That's not what I'm saying. But we should certainly assess which friends are elevating and which friends are decimating what is going on. Which friends are causing us anxiety because they're leading us astray, and which friends are cheering us up. And I don't mean cheering us up just in our own personal desires, but actually uplifting us, building us, equipping us, motivating us, inspiring us to do things, to live wisely, and to serve God. There is opportunity for us to have mentors and those we mentor, and I would encourage you to have both. I would encourage you to have a group of friends that are pursuant in the same directions of things of faith, things of family, things of finance, things of fitness, things of overall health. I like to personally, I'm a bit competitive. I do my best not to allow it to steal my joy. I think there's an effectiveness to some competitiveness. So I like to be silently competitive. Like, hey, okay, I see that so-and-so has, is able to do these things. I want to learn to do these things. So I allow them to mentor me so I can learn skill sets from my friends. And so, friends, I want to encourage you. Choose your friends wisely because they have a deep impact on the course of your life. They can lead you astray or they can lead you into wisdom. They can cheer you up in moments of anxiety or they can cause the moments of anxiety. They can be friends that surround you and uplift you, and I want to challenge you to be that person for others. Those are the words that we're looking into in Solomon today in chapter 12, the book of Proverbs, verse 9, 25, and 26. Choose your friends wisely. God bless. We'll see you next week.